Welcome to our KPC Daily Devotional. We will begin today by reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14. We'll read verse 1 and then resume at verse 12. On one occasion, Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, and they were watching him closely. Verse 12. And he said to the one who had invited him, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you. For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." One of the dinner guests, on hearing this, said to him, "Blessed is anyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God." And then Jesus said to him, "Someone gave a great dinner and invited many. At the time for the dinner, he sent his slave to say to those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything's ready now.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said to him, 'I bought a piece of land and I must go out and see it. Please accept my regrets.' And another said, 'I've bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm going to try them out. Please accept my regrets.' Another said, 'I've just been married and therefore I cannot come.' So the slave returned and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and said to his slave, 'Go out at once into the streets and lanes of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame.' And the slave said, 'Sir, what you've ordered has been done, and there is still room.' And then the master said to the slave, 'Go out into the roads and lanes and compel people to come in, so that my house may be filled.'" Today's devotional is entitled, "Company for Dinner." I caught a small brown field mouse in a live trap. It's a tubular cage with trap doors at both ends, baited with peanut butter. I would later take him out and release him far away in the woods. But first, I had to feed the dogs. So I set the cage down in the kitchen on a table, the mouse huddled in a corner of the cage, deathly frightened. I prepared the dog bowls and put them down in front of 6 eager snouts, and they all began to chow down. And then a funny thing happened. As soon as he heard all the crunching and slurping, the mouse got up and trotted straight out of the corner and began nibbling at the rest of the peanut butter on the trigger plate. From then on, he no longer tried to hide from me. Something about eating together created a bond that took all his fear away. Even the feral cats outside would rather I stand nearby and watch them eat. They crunch and purr, crunch and purr. I'm not surprised. People who live alone often find the loneliest part of each day is mealtime. You know, whenever God shows up in the Old Testament, it usually involves a meal. In the Bronze Age, if you wanted to seal a deal, you didn't shake hands or sign a contract. You ate a meal together. All of God's covenants with people are sealed with a meal. Call it the original power lunch. And the sacrifices in the temple? God got a part of it. The worshipers got part. And they'd celebrate. Whether it was a good harvest or divine forgiveness, they would celebrate with what we might call a holy barbecue. So it's no wonder that Jesus made a point to eat together with tax collectors and sinners, the blind and the lame, the cripples and the lonely, sidelined, lost people. And one of the last things he did was give his disciples a meal to share, a meal to remember him by. Simple fare, a little bread, a little wine. Once a year in October on World Communion Sunday, millions of Christians around the globe all together crunch and slurp and purr. You know, church can be one of the loneliest parts of the week, especially near the end of the service, when everything is winding down. But you know, there's something about eating together with one another and with God. It creates a bond that can take all our fear away. We don't have to hide from each other anymore. Maybe that's why God prepares a table in the presence of my enemies. You know, a good meal can often be the best way to make friends. But then, you know, even the smallest creatures know that. I wish you a blessed day ahead. Goodbye.